Hello there guys and welcome back to my channel for another What We Really Learned from the past Chelsea game, and for the first time in a long time, a second time in a row after a defeat, as Chelsea lost the FA Cup Final against Leicester City 1-0 thanks to an absolute screamer by Yuri Tielemans and VAR and Thomas Tuchel and a few individuals. And I think we've all had a tough, 24 hours pretty much. I think we've all had a very, very tough 24 hours. It's not been fun. It's not been fun. Chelsea fans have all lost the plot. Some rightly so, some over the top, but we've all lost the plot. I mean, everybody's individualizing everybody. You know, people blaming Jorginho, Kante, Kepa. Everybody has been blamed today or yesterday and been called the worst human in history of mankind or whatever. But at the same time, it's also a little bit understandable because it's just been rough. It's just been rough. And it's almost it's the hope that kills you, isn't it? You know, we've been put in such an amazing position over the last few weeks and months. Well, we were in an FA Cup final where we are in a position to still get top four after where we were when Thomas Tuchel took over. But we are in the Champions League final. But then a game like today just puts doubts on everything. And that... It's the worst thing, and it's the worst thing. And I replied to one of Con's tweets earlier and introduce Con in just a second. Well, I was like, I think the reason why we're more confident against the bigger teams when we're the underdog, it's mostly because of a fear of losing, because we've gotten so almost, and I know it's not been that long, but we've almost gotten used to winning all the time. So that whenever we're not accepting of losing, which the bigger the opponent, the more accepting of that we are, the bigger the fear of losing becomes. And yesterday, fear of losing was in full flow. And in the end, that obviously, you know, boiled up to, you know, an absolute nightmare with an equalising, stoppage time? Was it stoppage time or just before? I think it was stoppage time, being disallowed by VAR for this much, even though the frames of whether the ball is actually just leaving Thiago Silva's foot isn't this accurate. It's a mare, isn't it? Con, as always, thank you for joining me. Of course, guys, if you don't know Con, his link is down in the description, his Twitter. First of all, how have your last 24 hours been? And secondly, are we gonna therapy session our way out of this, or do you not see much hope?
Last 24 hours has sucked, man. Let's be real. I think top four in the FA Cup was the ones we was really expecting. I think, the Champions League, it'll be fantastic if we win it, but it's not the one that I thought we was generally going to win. I thought it was the FA Cup. And to lose it in the way we did, man, it's so annoying. It's so annoying. I was so angry yesterday, Laurenz. I did a space afterwards on Twitter, and I was so annoyed. Like, my emotions were through the roof. And I can understand why everyone's been a bit reactionary and been a bit scapegoaty, I guess, because everyone's lost their heads. I think we went from thinking we're going to win 2 cups and finish top 4 to thinking we might have bottled top 4. We lost the FA Cup and we're scared to play the Champions League, man. What a week this has been for us. It's been a horrible week, man.
Oh, it's been more than horrible, honestly. And there's so many things to discuss and so many things to touch on because, and I said this last night already, the big problem even for today was the Arsenal game. I said, maybe it's going to be the kick up the arse that we needed. But at the end of the day, and someone tweeted it, you don't play with momentum. And what we did against Arsenal was play, toy, and ruin momentum. And just look at the game yesterday. Everything that possibly could have gone against us went against us. Of course, some of the selection was dodgy. Of course, some of the performances were dodgy. And some people think it was Mount, like Jesters, for example. Some people think it's Jorginho. Some people think it's, Alonso. Whoever you think it was. At the end of the day, a lot of bad luck all came together yesterday in one game. The fact that Aspie didn't make it 1-0 in the first half because Timo got a slight touch on that with his head. Aspie's literally there to tap it home from a yard out. We know Aspie. He's going to score that, right? We're 1-0 up. We probably win that convincingly, and we're in a similar position where we were against Arsenal. If Kai scores his chance, we probably win it convincingly. And then, Leicester had one shot on target. And I know Tielemans is good at shooting from distance, but even then, even when you have a goalkeeper that's too short, even then, the fact that goes in from him It's ridiculously bad luck on our side. The fact that Schmeichel pulls off 2 wonder saves. I know he's a very good goalkeeper, of course, but 2 wonder saves. That Chilwell header, that would have gone in from the post. The fact that he managed to push that fully onto the post for it to go wide is a crazy save. The reaction save on Mount's volley is a crazy save. And the fact that Chilwell was called offside, even though, of course, by when the frame was stopped, he was offside. Of course, then it's a correct decision. But the problem with the whole VAR situation is that they go millimeters there, but they don't care about millimeters of whether the ball has actually left the foot yet. And, if you're going to be millimeter tight with an offside decision, you should be millimeter correct with when the ball actually leaves the foot, because that's by the rule of when offside should be called. And that's where the problem comes from. I'm not as upset about the offside call personally, because people say, VAR ruins everything. I'm very sure that the linesman actually calls it offside as well, because it's one of those, it's at the far post. He sees it. I think the linesman calls it offside anyway. Maybe that's just me trying to help myself through it and try to not blame VAR as much as I can so it hurts less or whatever. But I think it's one of these typical positions that if there's no VAR, the lino gives offside, and then we're all debating, was the lino wrong? Were we screwed by the referee? So I don't think VAR is like that. I mean, Jester said it here. You shouldn't be losing lines, period. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't. I think you should if the technology allows you to be 100% certain when the ball leaves the foot. Otherwise, maybe you should start talking about having a bit of a lenience. But then once you're done with the lenience, you end up with the lines again. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if you say, you give all the attackers 2 inches, 3 inches, 5 inches, whatever, extra, because you can't be certain. Well, then we're going to start drawing lines 5 inches from the furthest part of the attacker's body. And at the end of the day, we're still going to be sat here with lines. So it will never change that way. Like, it just won't. I mean, I've personally not had too big of a problem for the most part with VAR's offside decisions. The Werner one was obviously dodgy at Liverpool, and yesterday was painful as well. I think the problem is not with VAR as such. I think the problem is with the people making the rules. People haven't adjusted the rules to having VAR. That's, in my opinion, the big problem. These rules were made for human referees on the pitch, where he won't know exactly when it stopped anyway, but also he won't have the exact eye to call it by a millimeter. So then it's overall roughly fair. Decisions will go your way, decisions will go against you. But they haven't adjusted the rules for VAR. And it's the same with things like second yellow cards are not reviewed by VAR because it's not a straight red. Where's the logic? Because a VAR can then, if a red card is given by the referee on pitch, they do look at it and they give him a yellow, but they don't look at normal yellows. So what? And the same with the handball. The handball rule was changed literally 3 times this season. 3 times that rule has been changed. I mean, 2 months ago, that Paris goal doesn't stand. Or that Tielemans goal for the Paris handball doesn't stand. By yesterday's rules, it's probably fair enough to not disallow the goal. But at the same time, it's so open to interpretation, because if you actually read the rules, it's about if a goal scoring opportunity occurs immediately. But what is the definition of immediately? And that's what someone on BT, some referee said. Well, there was 7 seconds between the handball and the shot. Is that not immediately anymore? Or is it? Should it be? Should it not? Who knows? That's the problem. It's not clear. And that's why I put it in the title, because of VAR. Even though the decisions were probably correct anyway, because VAR is not adjusted to the current game, it's just all a mare. Do you know what I mean, Con? Or how do you see both of the VAR decisions?
No, I think you're spot on with that. The offside, I don't know how anyone with their hand on their heart can say that's definitely offside, because you can't pinpoint the exact time, because it should be on the full, the ball should be on the floor when you review it, right? And it's clear to see it wasn't in the frame that we got, that we all saw what was classed as offside. So I don't know how you can, hand on your heart, say, if you move that a few millimeters backwards, I don't know, maybe Chilwell, loses an inch, on that man. So it's a joke. It's a joke because if you look at other leagues like Serie A, for example, they don't use VAR like we do, and that goal gets given in Serie A. So I don't understand. I mean,
Justice even says the MLS do it better, and we know what us Europeans think of the MLS. So
yeah. And then the handball, I don't care what the rule is. They gain an advantage, accidental or not. They gained an advantage there. It's clear to see his arm changed the direction of the ball. So I don't know how that's allowed to stand. I don't care if it's accidental. If you gain an advantage of it, it should be disallowed, right? So
I think it's not as much about being accidental. I think the point is that it came off his leg onto his arm. And that's too much to react to, if that makes sense. So you can't blame him.
Yeah,
so you keep going.
I get that. But if it gives a team an unfair advantage, I don't think it should be allowed to stand, man. Like, that should be a handball, in my opinion. Well, because when we was growing up watching handballs, we'd see, to be honest, even back then, we didn't really know the handball rule, did we, to be honest? And it's one of those. It's like...
I think the referees don't either. They might claim they do, but I don't think they do.
No, I don't think either, because if you look at the Champions League, do you remember Emre Can? When he headed the ball and then it hit his arm?
Yep.
And that was given as a pen. So all over Europe is inconsistent. And I know the Premier League says if it bounces off the body part first, it won't be given as a handball. But I don't know, Laurenz. It's like you said, the technology is there, but we just haven't come accustomed with using it properly yet, you know? And something needs to be done with the offsides period now, because you can't keep giving these offsides for like a fraction of a body part being offside. It's getting beyond the joke. I think, you know, Wenger's idea of the offside, I think that's a lot better, because these offsides, they're a joke, man. They're honestly
don't you think eventually the lines will be all the same anyway? Because I think what Wenger says is one part of your body needs to be behind the line, basically, right? That's what he's saying. But then the line will just be drawn by, is it a 1 millimeter before the line or not? Like, I don't think essentially it won't change. It will just change where the lines are. But the fact that the lines are there won't change, if that makes sense. But you make a fair point. The problem are the rules, and that's what we can debate. But at the same time, you can argue both, like the rules were just as they were for both teams. Make sure you don't put yourself in a position where those rules can harm you. Because if we want to look at accidental handballs, obviously it's not an FA Cup game. But when we drew 0-0 against Man United, if we're going to give a foul for every accidental handball, Man United should have had a penalty for Callum Hudson-Odoi's handball.
Yeah, Laurenz, I'll be real with you, bro. I thought Callum Hudson-Odoi, that should have been a pen. I thought it was a handball. So it's not like I'm being inconsistent because it's Chelsea. If I see something, like, I think that Suma should have been a penalty, you know? Like, if I see us get a decision in favour, I'll be happy with it, of course, but I'll still call it out for saying I think it's wrong. And I don't know, like, I think VAR ultimately is a good thing, but the officiating in this country, and we've said it for some years now, it's getting beyond the joke. It's really getting beyond the joke, and something needs to change. It really does.
It does. We have a super chat here by Justice. I appreciate it as always, my man. Saying you have to understand why we have an offside and handball law. They are there because you gain an unfair advantage. So that's the only question the ref should be asking. It's true, but the problem is refs are, they're almost like employees, and they're told how to do things. If the ref was given a free reign of how to deal with the law and interpret it the way he thinks is right, referees might mostly be doing that. Obviously, you will have one where they get it wrong anyways, right? But the problem is, Jester, you're right in the essence of it, but that's not what referees are being told how to referee the game. That's the problem. And so it's a tough one. I mean, Melinda says it here as well. It's almost embarrassing to blame VAR. We were just not good enough, right? I mean, they had one shot on target at the same time. Them having one shot on target, doesn't that mean we were good enough?
See, that's the thing, though, isn't it? It's like, I think we can all agree Chelsea weren't great yesterday, right? Especially that second half. That second half was quite bad. But if you look at the chances both teams had, we probably still had the better of it, because they only had that one wonder shot. And just to touch on, the Mendy and Kepa thing, saying, "Oh, Mendy saves that," right? I'm not saying Mendy saves that, but this is where I think Tuchel got it wrong. I think Mendy should have had the opportunity to try and save that, I think he should have been on the pitch yesterday. So I'm not saying that Mendy would have saved it. I just think he should have had the opportunity to try, But
that's a fair point. You know what? We'll get into that in just a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, now first of all, if you weren't here last night, as much as I would have much preferred for it to happen under better, circumstances, and I probably would have hit it even if we won the game. But I did finally hit the 10,000 subscribers last night, which I'm very, very happy about. But that doesn't mean we stop there. So if you're watching right now, and we already have 100 people in right now, if you're watching and you haven't subscribed already, please go down below and smash that subscribe button. Let's, we're on the road to 20K now. I won't, shove it down your throat quite as much as it did the last 2 weeks. Don't worry. But eventually, that's what we want to get to, right? And of course, smash the like button as well. Do use the super chat function like Jester did if you want to support the channel, if you want to get your opinion. No, you really want to make sure that we discuss it. And of course, become a member if you fancy it. Let me quickly play the OneFootball clip. Of course, as you guys might know at this point already, I am this month sponsored by OneFootball. So download the app with the link down in the description and just listen to what I have to tell you now, basically. I want to say a massive thank you to OneFootball for partnering up with me and sponsoring my channel. Like the name suggests, it's a football app. And trust me, it's one of the best ones out there. You get all the latest football news from pretty much every single team and league all around the world. Team news, live score updates, league tables, fixture lists, everything you could possibly want to know in the world of football, you find it right there. Never want to miss out on any news surrounding Chelsea again? OneFootball has got you covered. As you can see on screen now, all the news is all there in one place. Whether it's the latest injury news, articles before and after games, or of course, transfer rumors. And with the transfer window actually opening and coming up soon, as well, you'll definitely want to make use of that transfer indicator, which not only tells you about all the rumors out there, it also tells you how likely a certain transfer actually is to happen. Like I said, it's honestly a brilliant app that I can only recommend downloading with the link down in the description below. And downloading the app with my link also really helps out my channel. All it takes is literally a few seconds to click that link down in the description below. Doesn't matter whether you're an iPhone or Android, I download the app right there with that link. So again, go down below into the description and download the OneFootball app with my link right now. And before we go back to discussing negative things again and depressing things again, yes, Stuart, everybody, if you don't know, the Chelsea ladies, the Chelsea women are facing Barcelona in the Women's Champions League final tonight, with the kickoff being at 8 p.m. UK time. So wherever you live, find a way to watch the game, support the girls because they thoroughly deserve it. They've been playing a brilliant season. And if they could actually get the dub there tonight, it would be more than just historical. It will be absolutely phenomenal. And, all of them, whether it's Emma Hayes, Fran Kirby, obviously her comeback story is unbelievable. Sam Kerr, how she struggled in her first season, arguably, and how good she's come since then. And it's an unbelievable story. So definitely check it out. And I appreciate all of the kind words, of course, for the 10K. Appreciate it a lot. And I suppose because of what you just said before, Connor, I'll get to the super chat by Carl in just a second. I want actually your reaction almost to Jester's comment there. Because Chester texted this to me even when we did the preview the day before the final. Obviously, Tuchel confirmed Kepa would start. And his argument was, well, if you play him in the semi-final and everything, and he does well in training and he works hard, you need to almost give them a little something so the squad also feel things are fair. How do you view that kind of comment, Con?
You don't win things from being sentimental, As much as, you want to, I don't know, get Kepa's price and stock higher, etc., etc. At the end of the day, it's a cup final and you play your best 11, Mm-hmm. I like Kepa as well. I think many people know me. Last season, I heavily defended Kepa, heavily, and I took a lot defending Kepa, right? So I like the guy and I want to see him play a little bit, to boost his confidence. I like that. But when you're in a cup final, you play your best 11. And the thing is, with that goal yesterday, fans wouldn't have that excuse saying, the keeper wouldn't save it, because it'll be our number one in goal. So, I don't know. For me, it's like, would you bench Eden Hazard? Do you remember in the Europa League? He didn't play until the quarterfinals. You don't bench your best players when you get to that stage of a competition, regardless if it's a League Cup, a FA Cup. You play your best squad, in my opinion.
I don't think you can compare outfield players and goalies, though.
Bro, because I think Mendy to us... It's just
no. I think you're right, but I still think you can't compare it to an outfield player because you can't give an outfield player that is usually a bench player minutes all the time because you have substitutions. You don't sub a goalkeeper.
That's true, but did you see Pep playing his second keeper against Tottenham?
Yes.
Wait, did
he
they?
Actually did.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm a bit of a clown then. But
no, Stefan did actually play. And people made the argument that City win everything anyway. So for them, a Carabao Cup final, that's less important for us, this FA Cup final, which I think they make a fair point. But I will also say this. Caballero played the FA Cup final last year, and no one had a go at Frank for that. But at the same time, obviously, the situation was different. We weren't really as clear on who the number one goalkeeper is because obviously Kepa was dropped at some point, then he came back in, and then, it was kind of back and forth a lot. So it wasn't as clear, hence why I agree with you. My opinion on Jester's comment is just, if it was the plan for Kepa to stay over the summer, then I agree with this comment. If the plan is to sell him, I disagree with that comment because the guy's gone in literally 2 weeks' time. So we don't need to save the locker room for a guy that's leaving in 2 weeks, ideally, right? Like I said, if the plan is for him to stay, then I think that becomes a thing to think about. Do I still think he should have played Mendy? Probably. But personally, I think he should have played him already against City. I know it went well, so it didn't matter. But for me, the problem is if you play him against City, you have to play him in the final. Because it's almost like until then, we had lesser opposition, so it made sense to play your backup goalie. Once you take him for the semis against Man City, which is a tougher team, better team than Leicester, I think at that point you force yourself into also playing him in the final. I think the mistake for the goalie was almost already made in the semis when he played Kepa there, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like once you give him the tougher game on paper, you need to give him the easier game, even if it's the final as well.
No, yeah, I get that. But at the same time, I think as much as you want to keep your players happy, sometimes you've got to make that tough choice, you know? And I don't know if Mendy saves it. Like I said, I generally don't. But I would want him to give him the opportunity to try and save it, you know? He's earned it this season.
He has. That's a very good point. And I've said this last night already. Not only does, in my opinion, Mendy save it, even though some individuals believe, oh, you don't know football if you think he saves it. Well, you don't know maths if you think he doesn't, because just look at how much longer his arm is. So it's quite simple. But my opinion isn't even that Mendy saves it. My opinion is that Tielemans doesn't even shoot from there if Mendy's in goal. And that's the difference we have when you have Mendy in goal compared to Kepa. And that's not because Kepa is bad, but that's because Kepa is short. And I saw a stat somewhere today. Kepa hasn't saved a single long shot that ended up in the top corner. But should he be blamed for much of that? Probably not, because he's just too short. But I can really off 3 or 4 or 5 goals where I'm like, if we had a taller goalkeeper, he saves it. That's the problem. But Kyle, I appreciate it. Appreciate the donation. Bad result. Use this to get yourself a Freddo, bro. I don't know if in England Freddos are actually £2. If so, they're certainly overpriced. Maybe there's London prices. Go up to like, I don't know, Sunderland, they'd be cheaper. But yeah, appreciate it regardless. I appreciate it regardless. I mean, Jesters is on his smoke today saying we didn't play our best 11 because Mount played. That's a bit of an outrageous statement to make.
I just want to make another point, Laurenz, if that's cool.
Go on.
So, you know, the Mendy thing, like, I'm not going to say like Kepa should have saved it, right? I think that's a class shot. But I think Mendy's world class, and I think a world class keeper makes that world class save, you know.
And like I said, I think it's one of those where it's not even. Of course, it would be a world class save, sure, but for me, it's just you're tall enough or you're not. Like, I know it sounds stupid, but like as a goalkeeper, that's almost what it is. You gain advantage for high shots, while you have a disadvantage for low shots because it takes you longer to get down, right?
Yeah,
that's always how it has been for goalkeepers. So a tall goalkeeper is very likely to save it. Of course, maybe not Ben Chilwell because he's probably not quite good enough, even though he's tall enough. But like as much as we criticize, Kepa's not a bad goalkeeper. So if he was tall enough, he saves it, in my opinion. You know, people have different opinions. And Melly, I will just say Leicester are a top 4 team as we speak, and they played Schmeichel. So I don't know. But obviously, you can consider Leicester not quite a top 4 team if you want. That's obviously fair enough. What have I seen here by Jester? It's not just about Kepa. That shows everyone in the squad that if you play well, you have a chance to start in games. That's true to some extent, but by that logic, shouldn't Mendy have started? Because Mendy has played well. Obviously, you can split the big games. Champions League final, Mendy will play, blah, blah, blah. Sure, but, you know, I think it's more about the cup rather than, if you play well, you get to play the final. It's a tough one to call for me. And we'll get to, obviously, the Kepa decision. You touched on it already, Con. But in general, the lineup. What did you make of that when it came out? And not just when he came out, even more so when we realised that Reece was playing right centre back and Aspi was playing right wing back.
When I saw the lineup, the first thing that stuck out for me was Alonso. To be honest, I don't know what that was about. So Tuchel, I have no idea why you was playing Alonso, but okay. The midfield, Jorginho, N'Golo expected. Seeing Hakim come in, kind of expected because his performances and Pully hasn't been great. And this is the thing, right? Like the point you just made, it really doesn't matter about how good a player plays sometimes. Maybe you should just play your best players. And I think we should have started Pully yesterday instead of starting Ziyech. I really do, because Ziyech's been on like the better form over the last couple of games, but Pully's the better player. And I wish we did start Pully yesterday. My words from a few streams ago I did with you, mate. But other than that, Yeah, I thought the lineup was actually all right. The Reece James thing made total sense because last year's FA Cup final, do you remember Aubameyang and Azpilicueta? I didn't want us to repeat with Jamie Vardy and Asby. So I think Reece looked good there. Besides that one stupid pass he did, he was really good, solid there.
I agree. Like you said, the Alonso one, that baffled me. I don't understand. And I've said this many times already now. But Chilwell literally gave an interview saying this is the one game he wants to win more than anything. And then we played the game, and what it felt like is the players didn't turn up. Right?
Yeah.
So which are the type of players that you want on the pitch then? The players that will really try hard. And Chilwell certainly would have tried harder than Alonso. Not that Alonso was like, oh, I can't be bothered. But Chilwell, you saw it for the eventual offside on goal by Wes Morgan. None of our other players would have had that drive to get on that as Chile did. None of them. And that's because he had a little bit of a different and higher incentive than the other ones, right? And that's why I'm not sure about the Ziyech Pulisic. I don't think it was necessarily about personnel in terms of ability. I don't think we failed because of a lack of ability yesterday. Because I think they're very even. So many, like that's why we have rotated the front three so much, because there's not much between them. It's all about form on the day, and that's difficult to call by the manager. I think it's more about how hard you work, what you do. And that's why I would almost go back to the Arsenal game. If Pulisic doesn't start the Arsenal game, he starts today. But because he started the Arsenal game, even if he wanted to start him, he was probably not in a position to start with. We know how his hamstrings are. He was probably not in a position to do so. Hence why, again, I go back. The Arsenal game is what ruined it yesterday. To some extent, obviously, right? And the one thing that really surprised me, I wouldn't say maybe triggered me, but surprised me, is the fact that neither Christensen nor Kovacic made the bench. I'm like, so did Tuchel only tell us lies? Or why did he say everybody's fit and available and then they don't make the squad? I don't really understand. And I'm not going to get into the whole Tammy debate again. Obviously, his girlfriend put on Insta whatever she did put on Insta. You can have your opinion what you want. I also find it weird. Why do we need Chilwell and Emerson on the bench? So 2 left backs, but we can't have 2 strikers on the bench. Like, there's no real logic in that. I suppose we had 2 on the bench in Kai and Giroud already, but if you can put 2 left backs there, you can also put 2.5 strikers there if you want to, right? I mean, Tammy still finished the competition as top goal scorer. Fair play to him, right? And I mean, Christian Pulisic has to start in big games. Sure, Man City in the league was a big game. He was. I know you disagree, Jess, and you a little bit as well to an extent, Con. In my opinion, he was absolutely dreadful until the last 20 minutes. And when I start Pulisic, I'm not sure, is he going to be the Pulisic on smoke, or is he going to be the Pulisic that can't be bothered? Because I've seen big games with him not being bothered, and I've seen big games with him being on smoke. I don't know with him. I honestly don't know. And maybe that's partly why Tuchel hasn't started him in some games, because maybe Tuchel doesn't know either. I honestly don't know.
No, do you know the funny thing is, Laurenz? Do you know what you just said there about Pully? Besides probably Mount, right? Because he has been our most consistent player, I'd say, over the season under both managers. Yeah. What attacker can you say that about? What you just said about Pully? Probably all of them, right? And I think that's the problem with our attack. It's just so inconsistent. And you just don't know what you're getting on the day. 1 minute, Kai Havertz looks like he's really hitting his stride. Next game, I don't know, look a bit ghost, not really getting himself involved too much, missing a big chance. Pully, sensational against Madrid. Man City looks awful, Ziyech looked kind of good against Man City. Against Leicester, awful. And it's this attack. Some players kind of do get a pass because they're kind of young and experienced. It's expected. But it's just, I feel like we're saying that a bit too much about certain players. It's just got to be better, man. It's just got to be better.
But I will tell you this now, right? That's what you you sign up for this when you sign young players.
It's true.
That's what happens. Obviously, Ziyech isn't young, so Ziyech is a bit different in that. But Ziyech came from a much lesser league. Ziyech wasn't used to having to be at his best week in, week out. It's like Ajax is a great team, but the teams Ajax play in the Netherlands, they aren't great teams. So that's the big difference, right? And at the end of the day, that's what you get when you have young players in the front line. That's why our front line is more inconsistent than the other parts of the team, because we have less experience in the front line.
I think that point about Ziyech, sorry, Laurenz, that point you made about Ziyech, do you know what? I never even thought about that. just to have like for him to be mentally ready for every game like it's a big game, because he's never had that before in his career.
No, that's why he turns up like on Champions League games, and whenever he's like, it almost has this preparation or this is a hype big game, he's usually ready. Not quite yesterday, but in the grand scheme of things, usually he is. But not when you start him like a few games in a row. He'll have a good game, he'll have a bad game, he'll have a good game, he'll have a bad game. And that's what it kind of is. But again, like, are you surprised? Werner is now 25. Werner shouldn't be quite that. But to be honest, I don't think Werner is a case of, aside from when he came on against Leeds, then he didn't look bothered. But usually it's not a case with Werner that he doesn't look bothered. Usually it's, does he have a good or a bad day? Or is he a good enough player or is he not? Well, with Kai, with Pulisic, Mason less so, but even him a little bit. Not in terms of work rate, but in terms of how effective that work rate is, that is too inconsistent. And that's because they're young. Obviously, there are exceptions to this. Someone like Ronaldo, someone like Messi, they weren't as inconsistent at that age, sure. But that's why they're two of the greatest, if not the two greatest players ever to play this game. Haaland, even though he scored more goals than he's played games this season, he's still inconsistent every now and again. Mbappe is still inconsistent every now and again. That's because they're young. That's just what it is. So, and I'm not even trying to take any blame of them. But at the end of the day, if those are the players you sign, that's what you're going to get. There's nothing you can do about it.
No, you're spot on with that, bro. You're totally spot on with that. We did sign up for this. We can't expect these young players to already be the finished product, they're young. Like, not every person's Mbappe, I think Mbappe really did change, the narrative of how we view young players, and Haaland to extend as well.
And Haaland's doing it now, 100%
how
agree.
Insane they are at their age, and we're kind of expecting every sort of player around that age range.
But you say that, I think people lose their minds a little bit with Mbappe, especially in England. People over Mbappe, like, I guarantee less than 1% of the English population watch Mbappe every week. Maybe less than 5%, shall we say, right? But it's probably less than 1% because there would still be 60,000 people that watch him every week, if my maths is somewhat correct. 60 million in England, 1% would be 60,000, right? So, yeah. So probably less than that. And they watch him play at the Camp Nou, sure. But they already forgot how he bottled it in the Champions League final the year before.
Yeah, that's true.
He literally bottled it. Will he bottle it in 5 years' time when he's 27? Probably not.
But saying that, in his defence, he is top goal scorer of Ligue 1 this season. We can't forget that.
Of course he is. Of course he is. And Haaland is second to Lewandowski, if I'm not mistaken. Or I think Andre Silva might be somewhere in there as well. Of course. And they could be that. And I mean, if Werner takes his chances, he's up there in top goal scorer in the Premier League too. But, the pressure is also different, The pressure in an average Liga game for Mbappe isn't that high. I mean, I say that. They're not even top of the league.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, maybe it should be. And if the pressure was higher, maybe they'd won the league. But like I said, I'm not trying to sit here to find excuses for everybody. But people have brought up the stats of how many finals we've won and lost over the recent years. Well, think about when Chelsea started to sign young, talented players compared to ready-made finished players. It's roughly about when we started to lose finals more regularly. It's not like we didn't lose finals before. We lost the 2008 League Cup final to Tottenham. We lost the 2008 Champions League final to Manchester United. We've lost finals before. Of course we have. But it's like recently, more and more finals. Of course, we still had Hazard, and Hazard dragged us out of it in the FA Cup final against Manchester United. Diego nearly dragged us out of it in the FA Cup in 2017 against Arsenal that we in the end lost, but Diego was the guy that nearly dragged us out of it, right? That FA Cup semi against Spurs with the Matic goal, Matic experience, Matic has won things, Hazard goal. Diego Costa, I think, scored one. Can't remember who scored the fourth goal we had on the day, but I know Willian scored two, like one penalty and one free kick or whatever it was, right? But still, and now we have all these young players that we're all relying on doing something. Yeah. And it's difficult. And of course, that's why, and in my opinion, that's why Frank was to some extent harshly done by, because he was like, okay, these players will need time, but I'm just going to play in a way where they find it easier to gain this experience quicker. And I'm not saying Tuchel is doing anything wrong. Tuchel is doing everything right for success right now. But I think under Tuchel, it will take a tad longer for these players to hit more experience than they would on a Frank. Okay, maybe not because we wouldn't have been in the Champions League and that cost experience.
That's a hot take there, Laurenz. It's a hot take.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so personally, because we're more pragmatic. And if you just go all out and you just rely on your forward line to take chances when they need to take chances, it puts pressure on them that they require to just do it. While if you have a solid back line, you're less stressed about that automatically, in my opinion.
I don't know if I agree with that, to be fair, bro. I agree with you with a lot of things. Lampard being better for the development of our younger players than Tuchel. I don't know if I agree with that, bro.
I mean, fair enough.
Maybe we'll have to agree to disagree on that one.
Yeah, no, maybe it was a hot take. Maybe it was wrong to say in terms of they would develop quicker, but it was just a different. I think what most people, maybe not, but for me, it was a different type of approach. It was the approach of, let's just rely on these young players, and eventually that will pay off. While Tuchel was like, now let's not do that. Let's use the young players and their abilities as we can, but let's not rely on only them, which is kind of what Frank was doing. And he's changed it around in that way. So, yeah, no, you're right. It's not. First of all, we don't necessarily know, and secondly, there's no proof of how it happened with Frank's young players, I suppose. But it's still a different approach of how we play as a team, right? The fact, Aspie always needs to play, right? That whole idea in itself tells you something. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but essentially, at least.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's a different type of approach. It's not saying it's a wrong approach. It's just a different approach. And I do want to touch on this because I got to Aspie now, and I was very intrigued by Thomas Tuchel's post-match interview. I only watched one. I only watched the one with Chelsea TV. I couldn't bring myself to watch the press conference and everything. So if he said anything additionally to that and you watched it, please put it in the chat, or you can tell me, Con. But what he said on Chelsea TV is that, of course, he played Reece James as right centre-back for the pace of Vardy, and that worked brilliantly aside from his mistake. But he also said he played Aspie right wing-back because Aspie is more risk-taking than Reece James at right wing-back, which is a very interesting take, which is actually true, and in a way makes, even though you think of it, because of Aspie, we do less down the wing, and he's worse as a wing-back. But is he so significantly offensively worse than Reece James? I guarantee Reece James, obviously Aspie didn't score it because of the Timo Werner deflection. But Reece James wouldn't have been in a position to pretty much tap in the goal from 2 yards. Reece doesn't go there. This is not where Reece goes. And that's not different instructions. This is different type of players. They take different types of risks. Even the assist for Ziyech against Man City. Aspie had to run up the pitch and as the right centre-back and almost do it for Reece. And only then did and I said this as a joke in terms of, Aspie showed Reece how he actually has to play as a right wing-back, and Reece was like, cheers, mate, because Reece was brilliant after that. But it almost actually was like that. It's like, take a bit of a risk every now and again. But as the counter argument to that is, of course, the one, or maybe not the one, but one of the risks, when Reece took a risk yesterday with that one risky ball that was then intercepted by Paris' arm, we conceded from it. So maybe he shouldn't have taken that risk. But that's why it's also different taking a risk as a right centre-back compared to a right wing-back. And there's been plenty of people that have criticised Reece James for being too safe when he plays right wing-back, which is why people prefer him as a right-back. Because he goes backwards too much. He receives the ball, he plays it backwards. He never loses it, but he never, how much does he progress it unless he's literally played the through ball and has to run after it to get to it? Obviously, City was a tad of an exception, but this has not been the regular occurrence, if that makes sense. Unless you disagree, Con, but I thought it was a very interesting take by Tuchel to state it like that.
No, I completely agree with you, mate. I think Reece James is a bit too safe playing, considering we know he can dribble. Like, he can use his body, he's powerful. Like, we saw it against City, like you said. Like, he can do it, but he's a bit too safe. And, yeah, take risks, but not in stupid areas, of course. Take intelligent risks, even if that's even a thing. But, like, take risks in areas where if you lose the ball, it's calm, innit? And, I don't know, Reece James has such superb quality on his delivery, right? But I just wish he would take on a man a bit more and, whip it in. Get half a yard and whip it in a bit more. Like Aspie does probably. Every time I watch Aspie at right wing back, he's always progressing up the pitch. He's running up the pitch at that right side. And I don't see Reece James doing it enough. And we know he can
less
do it.
so yesterday in Aspie's case, I won't lie. But still.
So, no, I agree with you there. And, yeah, I think Tuchel's right on that.
Mane actually scored. So was it given offside and then VAR said it's not offside, or what was it? Anyway, but I want to say one thing because, and I've said it myself yesterday as well, in almost not the heat of the moment, but just in my frustration post game. As much as I do believe we weren't quite on it, I still don't think you can say that as the reason why we lost as such. Because by that logic, Leicester weren't on it either. Because, I mean, they had less shots on target than us. They had less possession than us. And I think the dual percentage of how much we won was rather similar. Let me get it up just to quickly have that stat on. But, you know what I'm getting with that logic? That can you really blame it like that?
Yeah.
I mean, they won a few more duels than us, but obviously in comparison to how much possession we had to how much possession they had, it's a normal difference, not an exorbitant difference, for me, at least when I get the stats. A little bit, just a tiny bit. We also have to say Leicester are also a good team and they made it difficult for us. It's not just we were bad. They also did a good job. They did what we did to Man City in a way, right? That's exactly what they did yesterday. Not play better like we did, well, especially in the cup against Man City, but in the league, essentially, they were all over us in the first half. Obviously, we made some changes and it was better in the second half, and then we were the better team, sure. But essentially, I just don't want to sit here and say, oh, they didn't look bothered, they didn't try for the fans. I don't want to look at it that way, because I think that's putting words and putting actions into the players' mouths that's not the kind of vibe that we need if we want to turn it around for a Champions League final.
No, I agree. I don't think any football player goes on the pitch in the cup final and thinks, I'm not going to perform today because I can't be asked to win it. I don't think it looks like that. As much as sometimes it might come across like that, it's not like that at all. Of course you want to win the cup. What's the point of playing football if you don't want to win trophies, you know? It's just, I think there's a real problem with when this particular team is favourites in the game, they really struggle. And we've seen it multiple times under two managers now. With this group of players, when we're favourites in the game, we do not look, ready for that game, you know? It seems like when we're underdogs, we thrive. But when
And remember what I said at the start, fear of losing.
Yeah.
I personally think the reason why the players struggle to turn it up when they're favourites is because of the fear of losing, that they don't yet know how to put into a positive, but it almost holds them back.
Yeah, no, I agree. And sometimes I think they play a bit too cautious or a bit too safe.
They're too scared of making a mistake. While in the big game, they know they need to play risky to even get something.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think the evidence has been there this season to say that's probably the case, because you don't go from beating both Madrid clubs, beating Manchester City twice, to losing to Leicester and Arsenal in a week, you know? No disrespect to Leicester, all the disrespect to Arsenal. But you just don't, you know? If we was a bad team, we don't beat the teams I listed beforehand. And people might say, yeah, they play a bit more attacking, etc., etc. But Atletico didn't really attack us until the second leg, you know. First leg, they sat behind the ball and we still managed a way to break them down and score, you know, and keep them out. So, and
yeah,
even
but let's not kid ourselves that we had so many chances in that first leg.
Yeah,
we did. Almost like Leicester did against us yesterday with that one moment of magic. That's almost what we did against Atletico. With that one moment of magic. It's not like we had much else. Obviously, we had more than that one shot on target, but it wasn't much more.
No, yeah, I agree. But it's like a player coming up with that one bit of magic. We saw it against Porto as well with Mason Mount, you know? Like, the good teams find a way to win no matter how deep or how many men teams have got behind the ball, you know? Man City are like proof a good team can break anyone down, you know? And I think we do struggle with low blocks. Don't get me wrong, I think we do. But I think the problem stems further than that, you know? I don't think that's just the root of the problem.
First of all, I think the problem is also we struggle with low blocks, but struggling with a low block is kind of fine depending on who you play against, right? Yeah. Because the low block yesterday only became an issue once we went 1-0 down. Sure, Leicester were defending and they played with Johnny Evans almost like a sweeper than as a central centre-back. But it wasn't like they were super deep, right? Like we had spaces. Look at the amount of runs Werner had in the middle, whether it was after mistakes or after we created them. When once he skied it, once he dragged the shot wide, and once or twice he just dribbled into people, because maybe we'll get to Werner in a minute. But we had those situations. Just once they scored, they were in a ridiculously low block and we couldn't break it down.
Yeah.
But if we score first, that never becomes a problem, and we don't even think about our problem of breaking down low blocks. And we had the chance to score the one. And I know it wasn't like we created sitter after sitter, but we had, we had a better chance to make it 1-0 with the whole Aspi-Timo situation than Leicester did all game, even though they scored, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. I think credit to Leicester as well, how they played. I think the way they pressed us at times, like, you see how many times we was going long? Like, sometimes it came off, but a lot of the times it weren't, and they was getting the ball back. I think they pressed us really well yesterday. So big ups to them for that. And if anything, I do want to say this about Leicester. It softens the blow a little bit that we lost to Leicester, because I think they're a real example of how a football club should be run.
Did what Amati did after sway that opinion slightly?
No, that doesn't change my opinions on the club, because the club itself is really that's just one player being an idiot, Like, if one person,
it must at least be two, because someone filmed it and posted it.
But I don't think the person who filmed it knew the person was going to do that.
Was it live or was it a story?
I think it was live, because I think he got cut off.
Comments on it. Yeah, it's true.
Yes, I don't think he knew he was going to do it, and so that kind of softens the blow. Obviously, I don't want to lose, but fair's enough to Leicester. I'm not that salty to say, fair enough, Leicester, and I'm not happy for him, but at least it's not, a rival. I just wanted to say that. Sorry.
No, it's fair. No. I mean, I agree, but I also, in a way, disagree, depending on who the rival is. If we lost the final to Man City, it would have been a lot less than losing it to Leicester City. Champions League final is different, but for an FA Cup final, but that's more the fear of losing, because we would have been the underdog in an FA Cup final against Man City. That's why it would hurt less, if that makes sense. Not because we're less of a rival of them, I suppose. But I suppose they're the only exception, really, because Liverpool have been poor. I mean, we're literally ahead of them. Man United know they're ahead of us, but I hate them with all of my heart anyway. And obviously the same goes for Spurs and Arsenal. But I mean, someone said here, I think Jester was saying Werner plays better next to Havertz. That's all well and good. But again, I go back to the Arsenal game. Havertz spotted his chance of playing the final with his performance against Arsenal. And in my opinion, if you ask the coach, I don't understand. Like, if the way Havertz played against Arsenal, he arguably shouldn't have played yesterday. Like, there was no real reason other than, okay, I know how good you can be when you're on it, to play him. And the same goes for Pulisic. We can talk about how you should play your best players. Where were those best players against Arsenal then? Because they did absolutely nothing. So, like, we can talk about that we should have had this yesterday, but where was it against Arsenal?
Laurenz, can I ask you a question, bro?
Go on.
So, if you was Tuchel, right, and you see Havertz have a poor game, would you do what he normally does and bench him for the next one? Or would you play him through a little bit more of that poor run?
Well, I think it was an accumulation of two things. Obviously, he didn't start against City, did he? Kai, he didn't start against City.
Yeah, no, he didn't. No.
I mean, fair enough. Pulisic did. So for Pulisic, as soon as he started Arsenal, I knew he wasn't going to start the cup final. I knew that as the lineup came out on Wednesday before we ever played the game, whether he played well or not. We know his hamstring. We know his adductors. It's a physical risk to play Pulisic 3 games in a row. It's just like that, right? Kai, maybe you could have played him, and maybe he should have played him through it. But Kai's not a mentality monster, just bounce back with a crazy performance the game after. Because it's not like he hasn't done it before, but it hasn't really worked yet. While there's been other players where it has. Players like Jorginho, players like Kovacic, who, when they have a bad game, they usually play 5 times as good the game after. You could argue it wasn't quite the case for Jorginho yesterday. You can also argue how much of that is obviously his fault, but if everyone around you is not great, is poor, wouldn't any midfielder struggle a little bit? Obviously, depending on your strengths, like Kovacic is obviously more suited to trying things by himself than someone like Jorginho. Jorginho is, of course, more dependent on other players because he doesn't have the agility, the pace, and the dribbling ability. He's more a passer, so he needs other players to open themselves up for the passing to be effective, right? Even though I'm talking myself into a spiral here. But it's... And I know I'm not maybe as angry as I was yesterday, but I'm just trying to... The inconsistencies are just such a problem that I think it's so easy to say after the game. I think Tuchel got it wrong with Kepa and with Alonso. But I think it's too easy to say Tuchel should have started Pulisic, then that would have happened. Well, why didn't it happen against Arsenal? Pulisic should have happened. Tuchel should have started Havertz, then that would have happened. Well, Havertz and Pulisic together started against Arsenal. Where was it then? You know? So it's not as easy as just to say if he started that, then we would have won, or then we would have been so much better. There's literally no proof of that, because it could have happened, but it might not as well. Like, do you know what I mean? And we have had good performances with literally this front three, mind you. Like, we literally battered City in the FA Cup semi-final with that very front three of Mount, Werner, and Diaz, right? So, obviously, City play very differently to Leicester. I understand that. But, like, there is some, like, you can't just say. And also, Jorginho and Kante together, by the way. My big reason, my big problem, and you mentioned that Leicester's press yesterday. I think part of the press, why their press was good, is Alonso playing. And as much as Aspie takes more risks when he gets to the final third, Aspie is significantly more of a liability in terms of build-up play in the central third than Reece James as a right wing-back, because they're not as secure and good on the ball. And because Alonso was playing left wing-back, which he decided would now be left striker, the amount of times Rudiger had to go back to Kepa, Kepa had to punt it long to Werner, and Werner lost the header to Siyuncu. If Chilwell plays, we do that probably a third of the time, if not even less, just because it's Chilwell and not Alonso on the left, which automatically makes Leicester's press less effective. So it's those small things that Leicester had a great press, but we're capable of playing around great presses. We've proven that on a number of occasions, but never with Alonso in the team.
No, I think you're spot on with that as well. Like, I don't think people realise how much of a donkey Alonso is at times. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but when we're playing out from the back, this guy is so slow on the ball. He really is. He does everything in slow motion, man. It's like someone put a 0.5 speed on him. I can't be bothered with it. Like, I respect for what he's done for Chelsea, but you don't start him in the cup final, man. Like, so that's the only. I don't ever question Tuchel's lineups, but when I saw that yesterday, I was like, "What?" I just couldn't think why. Like, do you know, normally, like, we have like a logical sort of explanation for why someone like Alonso might start because they're high or something like that. I was thinking yesterday, and I was thinking the team isn't that tall, right? Take out Soyuncu, right? Evans is not too bad in the air, but it's not a player you'd start like an Alonso over to.
And Fofana ain't even that tall.
Yeah.
So like, even by the logic, they're playing three proper centre backs. Neither Iheanacho nor Vardy are a serious threat. So you could argue they had two serious aerial threats.
Yeah. So like, I don't know.
There's no logic. I don't get it.
No idea.
Personally, I think Tuchel was worried that Chile would overdo it because he wants to beat them so much. I think that's the real reason why I didn't start. But in the end, that didn't work out. And almost the opposite would have happened. I think that's why I didn't start personally.
Someone put in the comments, "Con, you insulted donkeys, they kick well."
maybe that's why Kai and Alonso get on well. I don't know if they do, but obviously Kai's favourite animals are donkeys, which is the weirdest favourite animal I've ever heard.
But I just want to touch up on your point before you made, because I wish I could clip that and put it on Twitter, right, where you said that in hindsight you could play Pulisic, but there's no guarantee, or you could play Kai. Sorry, you're spot on with that, and that's been our problem all season. That's the root of why we're in the top four battles, because not one person in that attacking line has been consistent. You know, and we can't rely on anyone there. 1 minute they have a good game, 1 minute they have a bad game. So you could say start this player, start that player, but they could just be just as inconsistent. You know, like you said, against Arsenal, Kai and Pulisic, quite an awful game for them. And then against City, Werner, Ziyech, really good against City, you know. And then against Leicester, Ziyech and Werner really bad. Like, so it's hard for Tuchel. Like, you can't blame him for whoever he starts in attack, you know, unless, I don't know, he puts a lineup of like Giroud, Ziyech, and I don't know, Marcus Alonso. Then you could probably blame him, but it's just so inconsistent in that front line now. It's just, like we said earlier as well, it's the younger players like Kai, Pulisic, etc. But oh god, man, we need the striker. We really need a striker, and I'm leaning more towards like a Lukaku now than I was a Haaland, to be honest.
It's interesting. I didn't discuss that with you. I discussed it with Pice. I listened to the podcast that Dan McCarthy and Simon Phillips did with Christophe Terreur, you know, the French journalist.
Yeah.
And he was speaking about... what did I say? French. Belgian, yeah. And he was speaking about Lukaku, and he said, and I thought it was an interesting take, He said, of course, he's improved under Conte, but part of the reason why he looks so much better is just because Serie A is slower. Even his first touch looks better because you have more time in the Serie A. And the footballers, they all have a decent first touch. The problem when your first touch gets bad is when you're stressed when you're under pressure. And because you have more time in the Serie A, there's less pressure, hence why there's less pressure to mess up a first touch or to get a first touch right. So it's an interesting take. And for me, Lukaku has almost dropped in an option when the asking price came out. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But if Lukaku is 120 million and it literally takes like 10, 20 million more for Haaland, I'm like, why on earth would I sign Lukaku? When
I get that logic.
By the time he's done, we can't sell him for anything. And Chelsea don't operate that way. We know.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. But Lukaku's just a bully. And I feel like we need that in attack. We need someone who's just going to be a bully, someone who has a real presence about him. And of course, Serie A is a lot slower than the Premier League. I won't deny that. But I think Lukaku gets mean for his first touch and stuff like that. And he's dribbling a bit too harshly. Because I think he can really drive on the ball. And when he's driving on the ball, when he's on it, no one's stopping him. He's too powerful. He's too quick. And we really, as much as I love Haaland, and don't get me wrong, if we get him, I'm over the moon. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like Lukaku's just a better fit because of how young that attack is already. And as good as Haaland is and as much of a goal-scoring machine as he is, we're going to chuck another young player in that attack. And that just worries me just a little bit, I feel like we need someone of at least a bit of experience in there because we've just got such a young front line. Are we going to be saying the same things next season? We need to give them a bit more time. They're young. That's just why I think it'd be better fit. But I'll take both, of course. But
it's a fair point, to be totally honest with you. I think the question just is what the reason why we signed these types of players, right? And it hasn't worked out with all of them. Someone like Morata, it hasn't worked out with, right? When we signed Morata with the same idea, then it didn't work out. So we signed Werner with the same idea, essentially, right? But if we want to, because what we're trying to do is not put ourselves into a position like we happen to be in this season, but that's where we are suddenly in the Champions League final when no one expected it. When we're having to scrape top four out at the end, right? Obviously, Cup final is separate, but just the Champions League and the Premier League. We want to be in a position where we're every season fighting for the Premier League and every season going to at least be one of the favourites to at least make the semi-finals in the Champions League. And we certainly weren't that, right? And to get there, you probably need to grow as a group and become it, if that makes sense. If you're not that, you need to grow and become that. And the second you put a Lukaku in that might help you for 2 seasons or 3 seasons, before the rest of the players have become it, you need to buy yourself a new striker that allows you to be that. And I'm not sure how easy that is. That's the only small thing I'd be slightly worried about. But I want to touch on this comment by Justice here. And he makes a point that I don't have a total easy set reply for, saying, Laurenz, you've talked about Christian Pulisic's bad games, and that is why he didn't start. Will you say that Mount shouldn't start on Tuesday? He's been awful the last 2 games. Now, I mean, the one thing we'll disagree on is that I don't think he was that awful against Arsenal compared to most of the others. Second half, sure, but okay, are we gonna that's like putting Pulisic, playing him centre mid and expecting him to be great. He wouldn't be great there either. I mean, Pulisic wasn't great even playing as a 10 against Man City because he had to carry the ball and couldn't do the running. And Mount, and I know you don't like it now, Jester, but I will tell you right now, Mount, while not being great, let's say maybe not poor, or awful, I wouldn't agree with that over the last 2, but certainly poor yesterday and not great against Arsenal. He's shown consistency throughout the season, which Pulisic has in his entire career not been able to do aside from 9 games in restart. Pulisic has never been able to show consistency. That's his only problem he has, because he has the talent, he has the pace, he has the finishing, he has the passing, he has the dribbling. He has it all, aside from consistency and staying injury-free. And Mount has been so consistent that he can be, not excused, of course, but for him, you almost see you see it more likely that he turns back to playing well the next game after a bad game because he's been good for the most part. But, Con, how do you see that?
With Mason Mount, I'm going to make a point here, and I could get killed for this, but last season I didn't really rate him that much. I think that's obvious to people who know me. This season, I've kind of fallen in love with him. But one thing that he really does need to work on is his creating side, because 3 assists in open play in 100 games is not good enough. That's not Chelsea standard. And there's no excuse anyone can give me for why he only has 3 assists in the 100 appearance. That's just not good enough. When I saw that yesterday, it kind of opened my eyes to what he still needs to improve on in his game. And that's when he's in and around the box trying to find that pass to be a bit more creative. And that's why I'm getting into the mindset of Chelsea need like a Jack Grealish. When we do change formations, I want Mount back as an 8 and I want Grealish to be further up than Mount, because he's someone who will create. He's somebody who knows the Prem.
So you
He's
think
somebody who will
Grealish
score
would then
goals.
play over Kai Havertz?
I think they can all coexist, to be honest.
Mount, Grealish and Kai?
I think they can all, yeah. Because with Grealish, the beautiful thing with Grealish is we say Mount's versatile, right? But he's versatile to an extent where he's kind of limited in some positions. Anywhere in that front line, besides up top, Grealish can play, and he can play at a high level too. So we're not just talking about a versatile player like Mount, who he looks good in some position, but in his main position looks great. We're talking about a player who looks great in each said position, position. And I think that's why Jack Grealish would fit us to a T. I think we're really missing a Jack. I can't even talk. We're really missing a Jack Grealish profile kind of player. I thought that was going to be Hakeem Ziyech. I don't know if that's going to be the case now, but I know that would be Jack Grealish. And I don't think Mount's ever going to be that 12 plus assist player each season from open play. But I think Jack Grealish can be that,
My problem with Grealish is he's too expensive for the type of club he plays for right now. Because there is no proof. And some people will say, well, you're just wrong. And some people will say, fair enough, that he can be that talisman when he's not by far the best player in a club. And it's almost, obviously injuries have hampered that, so who knows if Hazard would have been different. It's almost like when Hazard made a step from us to Madrid, where out of nowhere he wasn't by far the best player and the talisman. And out of nowhere he wasn't that special all the time anymore. And I'd be a little bit worried if we signed Grealish that he'd still be a good player. Of course he would. But I don't think it would be anywhere near as good for us as he is for Villa, because it's just different.
But I think that's going to be the case for anyone we sign. I think if we sign a Haaland, if we sign a Lukaku, if we sign a Sancho...
I don't think an Inter or Dortmund are anywhere near as far away from us as a Villa.
I don't know. I think because a lot of Chelsea fans are saying want Sancho, I think Grealish is much more effective for Chelsea than Jadon Sancho is.
I think that depends on the formation we play. If we need a winger, we don't need Grealish, in my opinion. Because Grealish needs to be given freedom that I don't think he is good enough to earn.
He has immense work rate, though. I think a lot of people...
No, he does. Of course he does. But he still needs positional freedom that I don't think Chelsea would give.
Bro, do you know one thing? Like a misconception I had, I used to rate Maddison more than Grealish last season, right? A misconception I had was Jack Grealish wasn't really good, like great one-on-one. He can play as a direct winger. Like as much as people won't believe it, if you watch some of Villa's games this season, he can play that role and he can play it really well.
Yeah, I don't know if comparing a Villa game to us is... Who sits back against Villa? Like, no one. So how... Maybe aside from Sheffield United and Newcastle. But, like, we don't know how he would actually do when he plays in a team like us. Like, it's almost the same problem that we had with... Wait, who did we sign where we almost had that similar type of problem? I can't remember it now. But you get what I mean, though. It's so different, like, what you need to do playing for Villa than what you need to do playing for us.
I totally agree with that. And that's true. But there's so many teams you can say that for. Like Declan Rice is wanted by a lot of Chelsea fans, and that's the exact same case.
And that will be my exact same counter argument to Declan Rice. The only counter argument to my counter argument, if that makes sense, is name me another one that does what Declan Rice does. I think there are more that do what Jack Grealish does.
Who does it better than Jack Grealish, though?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. Because
that creative winger, who does it better than Jack Grealish in the Prem? Creative winger, not goal scoring, just creative. Creating chances, drawing fouls. Who does it better than Grealish?
Mahrez.
I don't think so.
I think so.
I think Mahrez is more of that goal threat than he is. I think Grealish is more to pick a pass and take that shot. Unlike Mahrez, who will probably take that shot. I get why you're a bit conservative from the idea. I get it. I just think
it's too expensive for how much proof we have that will work.
Yeah, I get that. But at the same time, bro, it's not our money, you know? And this is just a wild dream. Like, the likeliness of this happening is probably 5% anyway. But I think we just need that kind of, as long as, like, with a striker, I think we need that kind of profile of winger too, you know? A player who's like Jack Grealish, at least. If it's not Jack Grealish, someone like Jack Grealish.
Because to me, Jack Grealish, when you play him on the wing, as much as he can do that, 100%, to me, it's just a number 10 playing wide. He's not a winger.
But he's bloody good at it.
He's not a winger. And then you don't have to compare him to wingers, because that's just the position he's being played in, right? And then you can start talking about Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, those type of players. They're not played in those areas. For Foden at times, of course, but they're not necessarily played there. But that's just that's for different reasons, not to fault them, right? And if you compare him to 10s that can do what he can do, I think there's a fair few out there.
If you look at this Chelsea side, right, let's say under Tuchel, he gets backed. So a lot of the times people will be sitting deep, right? But when we get the ball, when we get that counter press and we hit, Jack Grealish will be perfect for that. So I'm sick of seeing players like Timo Werner ruin them transitions because this guy can't dribble and he can't pass, you know? Jack Grealish will fit into this team 100%, I feel. I think he'd fit in a tree. He'd slide right in. I think as much as we will play against low blocks and all that, like, I don't think he struggles with that. Because then he doesn't really need to be as direct. He needs to be a bit more creative, find them passes between the gaps, you know, play the 1-2s, get into them half spaces. And he's brilliant at that. So when are we ever going to really need him to be bursting out with pace? And that's in transition. And that's one thing at Villa we know he can do very well. So I think if it's like 70 to 80 mil, it would be a great signing for us. Because do you know what, Laurenz? I don't think we're getting either Haaland, Lukaku or Kane. Levy won't sell to us. I think we'll get priced out of Haaland, and I think Lukaku will stay at Inter because he loves the club and he loves Conte. So if we can't get a marquee striker...
Like Christoph Torres said in that interview, first we have to see if Conte stays at Inter. Because Inter don't have money, and we know how Conte doesn't like improving his squad. So
that's true. I think if Conte stays, Lukaku stays.
There is a chance of that. Now, first of all, we need to get Champions League football before we can talk about any of these types of players anyway, because the idiots that we are, we haven't secured that yet.
That's a good point, yeah.
For me, I still think we need a striker much more than we need one of these wide players. As much as Jack Grealish maybe offers a couple of things that we don't quite have yet, I think we're still too saturated in that area to sign another player there. That's why I don't necessarily agree and think that we're going to get Sancho or try for Sancho seriously anyway. Personally, I think that's more media made up than anything actually serious, personally, because I think they'll probably, as much as we'll have a big window probably, striker and centre-back and DM, every journalist has said is higher on the priority list than a winger. We're not going to sign 400 million plus players.
I get that, bro.
Or 60, 80 million plus players. It's not going to happen.
What about if we can't get that marquee striker? Because there's only 3 in my head who'd be a real marquee striker for Chelsea. And it could be likely that we don't get either of them. So who do we sign? And that's the problem. Do you just take that risk with Andre Silva?
I get that for next season, but doesn't that then put you in a position where your next season almost with problems if you want to sign a striker because you have too many different players that you need to play? So is it one of those situations where you just need to, if we can't get the top targets now, rather than doing what we always did for the last few years of buying then second-hand and B-Tech options, just deal with what we have and try again next year to sign that. Maybe we're in a position where we need to just not do that anymore. It's almost what City do. When City can't get a player that they want, they don't just sign anybody instead. They just don't sign anybody then.
Laurenz, they wanted Koulibaly and they ended up signing Ruben Dias, you know? Great scout.
Yeah, but that's okay. Yeah, but that's more like, okay, we can't get Haaland, we're signing Lukaku.
That's the problem for us because ever since the start of the season, I remember reading in The Athletic, they said that Chelsea really want a striker this summer. So if we don't get Haaland and we can't get Lukaku, there's no chance of Kane. I think people need to get out of their head.
Yeah,
we're going to sign a striker, but who's the striker going to be? Like, I feel like it could be like Silva, you know? I feel like that'd be the other option we'd go for.
Andre Silva, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's sadly another one where I'm like, that's not going to work out. Personally.
Yeah, I agree. But who else is there? Calvert-Lewin?
He's got Morata written all over him for me.
Well, he's flopped in 2 leagues already.
2?
Yeah, La Liga and Syria.
Where was he in La Liga?
I'll Google it 1 sec.
Because I didn't know he was in La Liga.
So that's the issue. Like, if we can't,
I thought he went from Sporting to Milan, and then from Milan to Frankfurt with the Rebic deal.
Let's have a look. I'm pretty sure he did play. I could be waffling here, but I shall check. 1 second. It keeps opening apps on my phone.
You just need to Google his name.
It's only coming up with Frankfurt and Portugal, his current ones.
Just open the Wikipedia page, bro.
Wikipedia. Here we go. How old is he? He's like
25, I think.
25.
So I'll tell you, he played for Porto, not Sporting Milan. Then he went to Sevilla on loan. You're right.
Sevilla, yeah.
To Sevilla on loan. Scored 9 goals in 27 games, I suppose. Then he went to Frankfurt on loan, scored 12 goals in 25 games. This is all in the league. And then Frankfurt signed him last summer, and now he's got 27 goals in 31 games. So, yeah, it's a tough one. I quickly, because I've highlighted it for so long, because Pashal said, can he add something? And I think he wanted to come on. I was like, just put it in the chat. Anyways, that's what he added. Jorginho was the only deep man trying to build. Kante was supposed to be available. Kovacic would have offered support. To some extent, you're not wrong, but to a bigger extent, that's the wing-backs' fault. Because Jorginho and Kante have always worked this way, but because the wing-backs were different ones yesterday, Jorginho didn't have those options, and that's why he would have needed Kante more. If that makes... Did you get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, I get what you said. Yeah, sorry. I thought you were talking to the comment there. Sorry, my bad.
They will probably take too long to reply. But
I agree.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. And that's what you get when you play Alonso and Aspie at your fullback.
Yeah. Especially Alonso. I mean, Aspie can do a job, certainly. Not quite the same in terms of ball retention, right? That's all I'm saying. I actually do not disagree with Tuchel in saying that Aspie's better in the final third than Reece, because we talk about Reece's crossing, but I swear Reece's crossing, he's barely tried a cross since Tuchel has come in. I don't think that's necessarily Tuchel instruction. I've barely seen Reece play any cross since then. Obviously, he pumped cross after cross after cross on the Frank. That's a long time ago now. So you could only make the case that Aspie's more of a threat, even as a wingback in the final third, whether it's trying to get in the box to score himself or playing crosses or link-up play, whatever. Right? But in terms of build-up play and ball retention in the central... what do you mean check the Liverpool game? I have the notifications on. I've not received the notifications. I don't know what you're waffling about. It's still 1-1. Okay, so why do I have to check? I knew that, Fernando. But I appreciate it anyway, sorry. But yeah, for me, Kovacic, maybe he would have offered support, but then if Kovacic played and we had the same formation, we would have argued that our midfielders weren't offensive enough. So yeah, it always comes back both ways, doesn't it? Yeah,
I agree.
So it's just one of those. It worked in Fulham. Yeah, Fulham's Fulham. Like Fulham. So it's another one. Your message didn't go through. What message? Jester. Let me know what message. Was you super chatting? Was you trying to DM me? Was you normal chat message? What are you talking about? A lot of people in the chat have been arguing about or discussing about which formation Tuchel wants to play. Someone yesterday, a couple of people were like, we need to change formation ASAP. And we kind of do, but now it's too late. We need to just see it out this way now. We don't have time to change formation anymore now. And please, Tuchel, I know we have a week between the last league game and the Champions League final. Please do not change formation for the Champions League final. That's not going to work. Please, don't overthink it. I think that's partly what happened yesterday. Overthinking even though Reece essentially worked, in a weird way, it's still part of overthinking it. And Alonso, and don't change formation now. For next season, just as said, Tuchel played this 4-2-2-2 for PSG all the time. He did. For me, I was also under the impression of the research I did when he signed, and I did quite thorough research, that he played a 4-3-3 a lot when he was there. In particular, last season, when he had the option of having Thiago Silva and Kimpembe as centre-backs and Marquinhos as a DM, who then almost dropped deep and push the other ones wide to almost create a back three in build-up, because he likes to build his attack in a back three. That's what he does. Almost like he did that at Dortmund already. He did that with that formation at PSG. Less so when he plays for the 4-2-2-2, sure, but that was kind of his idea. This season, once Thiago Silva had left and Marquinhos had to kind of play centre-back all the time, or for the most part at least, he changed a little bit. Then it's maybe more true to 4-2-2-2. Because he didn't have any DM, he didn't have any players that could really do a DM role by themselves like Marquinhos could. Obviously, they signed Danilo Pereira from Porto, but he first of all didn't want him, and second of all, he's all right, but he's like 27 by the time he signed for PSG. I think he's that old. Fernando with the super chat, big up yourself, saying congrats for the 10K, appreciate that a lot, and saying TT, please bring us the Champions League trophy. Yeah, please do, and the players as well. Turn up, do something. Because I can't hack it. If we lose again, I will dig myself my own grave and just go to sleep. No, don't worry, I'm not going to kill myself. But don't demonetize me, YouTube. This is a joke. I'm just going to do actual sleep. They're going to do a Rapunzel and go for 100-year sleep or whatever it is.
No, it's just to bring back to your point. The formation. I don't think he'd play a 4-3-3 at Chelsea. Just for the point, I feel like he played 4-3-3 to sort of. Because if you looked at that midfield, it was Marquinhos, Ferretti, and Idrissa Gana Gueye that went fit. So it sort of took the workload of Neymar and Mbappe.
Di Maria played as an 8 quite a bit, which is interesting.
Yeah, you did. Because he's got a high work rate. So Mbappe and Neymar didn't have to come back and defend. So, because I read in Athletic, he was going to play, he's looking to play a 4-2-4. I don't know if you've seen anything about that.
Yeah, for me personally, and I know it's not the same, but for me, 4-2-4, 4-2-2-2, 4-4-2, it's all the same. It's like having a go at, do you call what we play right now a 3-4-2-1? Do you call it a 3-4-3? Do you call it a 5-3-1? It's all the same thing. Really, it's all the same thing, essentially, right? For me, because in some opponents, your wide players will be forced to come more central, so your fullbacks are allowed to space on the wide areas. But then some other games, your fullbacks will stay a bit deeper, hence why your wide players will stay a bit wider, and the central players will come a bit further. So that's why a 4-2-2-2, a 4-2-4, or a 4-4-2 is all essentially the same thing. But of course, we can do that. It's just. For me, I struggle in that formation, how we put everybody we have in. For me. That's why. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think with Tuchel, it's quite hard to predict what he's going to do. I think one thing we've learned is Tuchel's not predictable. You never know.
Tuchel's not predictable, but at the same time, he is. He plays 3-4-2-1 every game. At the moment, at least.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's essentially what Con said, but it's true. But I would rather than trying to go stupid out for like Grealish, personally, for me would be sign a centre-back, spend more money on a centre-back. Maybe you can somehow convince Marquinhos. Sign a DM maybe if you need to. Do something like that. If you want to change formation, Tuchel needs to look very hard at himself. Does he really want to have us be in the team pretty much every game? Because if he does, you can always scrap the idea of playing forward the back. It's not going to happen. So Tuchel needs to change that if he actually wants to play a fullback. Because he seems so adamant on it. Almost dangerously adamant, in my opinion, at times. Not for a Champions League final. Even I would play Aspie in that. But in some other games, I'm like, we didn't need Aspie here. We really didn't. So unless he changes that approach and that opinion, we're not gonna do it anyway. Personally, I know people love Verratti. I've never rated Verratti that highly, personally, but not in terms of I think he's bad, but I think
My problem with him is he's just always injured. That's my
For
problem.
me, he's just Kovacic. I don't understand.
I love
He's
that.
just a midfielder that doesn't assist and score enough and dribbles a lot.
I think, that's not even a hot take. I will put my hand on my heart and say I'd rather have Kovacic, and I think we've got enough in Kovacic. We don't need Frey. A lot of people.
I'm not even saying he's better or worse than Kovacic. It's not even my debate, but I'm saying I don't need two types of the same player.
When we have the better one already, I know a lot of with Ferretti, bro. He's like an hour. A lot of people say he's good.
I thought you said an hour. I was like, what?
A lot of people say he's good, right? And say he's this player, but not a lot of them actually watch him. They go with reputation more of what they see themselves.
Yeah, maybe so. Verratti is. Excuse you? No, Verratti's not Kante.
No, Ferretti's definitely not Kante. If there's one midfielder, he's not the goal.
No. Sorry, Ali. I appreciate you, yeah? You always say it and I appreciate it, but no. Right? No. Just not, no. I mean, we've gone very... if this is true, I will slap someone. It's actually true.
No way. Please don't tell me Liverpool scored.
Yeah, they have. 95th minute.
Alisson scored, apparently. Alisson scored? What?
Yeah. Header.
I can't believe it.
Well, not quite yet. Wait, where is it? They could still drop points against Burnley.
Oh, God.
I don't even know what to say.
This week has been horrible, isn't it? What a week.
The karma gods, they need to come back by May 29th. Like, we are getting no karma this week.
I hate football sometimes,
I thought this only happens in a different universe where goalkeepers actually score when they come up. You saw, was it Onana? I think it was Onana like 3 years ago when he scored like a back heel for Ajax for a winner. And some other Dutch goalies also scored like a ridiculous volley, overhead kick, whatever.
I can't believe it. I can't believe Alisson's just gone and scored, man.
I'm going to go into it and look at the goal. What a header. Are you taking the piss? This is too much dick. I can't even hate it. Because I actually think it's super sick every time a goalie scores. I'm in a group chat with a Liverpool fan, and I read you out what he said before this goal happened. Just because of how ridiculous it is. Klopp prayed to God for a real football game in the second half, and God did his best he could when the other option was improving West Brom. Like, he thought it was over. Sam Allardyce, I hope you rot in hell, mate. Man was crying after getting relegated.
I can't believe it.
Where's our luck gone? If they just win 3-0, none of us have bothered because we expected that. But 95th minute, Alisson header from a corner, you're taking the piss.
I genuinely can't believe it. I'm shocked for words.
This is ridiculous. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're here right now, please subscribe. You know, I know we hit 10K already, but get subscribed already. Just hit that big red subscribe button. We're on the road to 20K now. 11K, 12K, 15K, 20K. Do you know what I mean? So get involved, get subscribed, smash the like button. Let me see how many likes we have. Definitely not anywhere near enough, I presume. Let me see. Let it update quick. 122 likes. Let's get to 150 likes right now. Come on, guys. Go down below, smash the like button, turn it into a lovely blue. Not for us yesterday, I suppose for Leicester, maybe. Cheer us up. What a mare. If Chelsea ladies, women, don't win the Champions League final tonight, I'm scrapping football.
If we bottle top four, the UCL for both men and women's, we've bottled the FA Cup. I'm investing in tennis, man. I'm just watching some Novak Djokovic, man.
If that happens, I'm turning this channel into a Formula One channel and just all change the sport because then I can't be bothered anymore. Cause there was 4 minutes of injury time. They score after 95. I mean, obviously, you let a corner play out. Let's not be silly. But there should have been way more than 5 minutes of injury time yesterday. I mean, Leicester literally time wasted more than 5 minutes. There should have been 10 minutes of injury time yesterday.
I actually can't believe it. 95th minute with Alisson scoring that. You can't make this up.
Have you seen the goal?
No, I haven't. Is it good?
Yeah. Just put Alisson in on Twitter and go to 2 videos.
Oh, my God. Let's have a look. Great header, to be fair. I can't believe it, man. Our luck is horrible right now.
What is going on? We're now, well, not obviously we're relying on ourselves, but if not on ourselves, we're relying on Burnley, who lost 4-0 to Leeds, to get points from Liverpool.
We need to beat
I've never been so quiet for 10 minutes in a stream.
We really need to beat Leicester. We really need to beat Leicester.
If we don't beat Leicester, honestly. You know, I tell you a little secret now.
What's that?
About 2 weeks ago, I clocked that the last game of my local club is same day, same kickoff time as the last Chelsea game this season against Villa. And I thought, because that's the first game fans are allowed back here, I thought, okay, if we have top 4 wrapped up by then, I can skip one Chelsea game. It will hurt, and I'll just watch it on my phone in the stadium, even though people will gangster me, but I don't care. Now, not only can we not have top 4 secured by the time we play Leicester, we might not even get it.
Oh my. Oh my. You know they're saying when it rains, it pours.
I mean, thank you, Jester, for the positivity, because we need it. I mean, at the same time, now that I'm out of my negative head after the Alisson goal, I also firmly believe we're going to beat Leicester in the league. They're going to be hungover by the time we play them still. Do you know what I mean? And we're hopefully going to be up there, turn up for revenge and not, bottle in front of our fans again, right? By the way, if any of you watching this right now booed during kneeling for the Black Lives Matter movement, you're a prick, right? Lift yourself up, put yourself into the bin. So that's where you belong. What a mug you are. Anyway, different discussion. And we should beat Villa. Villa got beat by Palace today. We should beat Villa, even with home fans of Villa.
I'm lost for words, though. I don't like this juju going around right now.
No,
I liked it when it's going for us, not this. This is horrible, man.
I blame Edouard.
I'm starting a hate campaign. If we lose that Champions League final, I'm starting a hate campaign. I don't care.
Yeah, because then some anti-Chelsea fan will probably have the same thread for the 2008 season, because that's what it's looking like right now.
Yeah, bro. Do you know what's worse? It's the fact that if we bottled if we didn't get top 4 this season, right, and we weren't in the cup finals, that's one thing. But the fact we've got in them positions to win them cups and to get top 4, and we could actually bottle it. That's what hurts. Is this what being an Arsenal and Tottenham fan feels like?
Yeah. I don't even know anymore, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to end it here. I don't know what else to say. I'm hoping for Tuesday to be better, to get better. And again, yeah, it is a stellar header, to be fair, by Michael Brock or Michael Brock, whichever country you're from. Let me say this one more time, which is important. Watch the Chelsea women in the Champions League final against Barcelona tonight. 8 o'clock UK time kickoff. It's in the UK. I think it's streamed on BT or whatever. If you live elsewhere, find a way to watch it. I'm sure you will. If in Germany or Austria, it's on TV on Sport 1. There's loads of places streaming it. I think it's on the Fifth Stand app to watch as well. As far as I'm aware, I'm not sure whether they're shot on YouTube too. But just find a way to watch it, because the ladies deserve our support. A football club is more than just the men's first team. And they've been so brilliant this season, so show them some support. Watch that game. Hopefully they can get the dub, because it would be absolutely historical. And aside from that, also make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. That'd be massively appreciated. Just click that big red subscribe button underneath. That'd be sick. Smash the like button. Become a member if you fancy that. Download the OneFootball app with the link down in the description. Best football app out there. Gives you all of the news that you need to know. Sometimes all of the news that you don't need to know when it's a week like this. But still, all of the news regardless. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. And I'm just saying, our team, I don't think the BT YouTube channel is, they'll probably location, geo-locked it to only the UK, probably. But I don't know. Yeah, Con, as always, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining me on the channel. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're still watching, go down below into the description. Click the link to Con's Twitter and help him get towards 100k followers on Twitter, because man's big time. So, if you haven't already, go down below and follow him, because that'd be brilliant. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards. That's the only thing I can say. And I'll see you next time.